Welcome to the Thunder Nerds. I'm Frederick Philip Von Weiss. Thank you so much for joining us again. And please remember to subscribe, like the show. Would be really cool of you. And want to thank our sponsor. We have Auth0. Auth0 makes it easy for developers to build a custom, secure, and standard-based unified login by providing authorization as a service. So go ahead and try them at auth0.com. Really appreciate Auth0. Thank you. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get to our guest. Wow, we got a lot of things to talk about here, Chris. We're going to welcome, this is a list, Microsoft MVP, Google Developer Expert, Oracle Groundbreaker Ambassador, international speaker, front-end dev podcaster, horror fan, accessibility advocate, UI developer, and a hunter from Supernatural himself, Chris DeMars. Welcome to the show, man.
What's going on? What's going on? And we'll also add to that, media developer expert at Cloudinary.
Yeah, that's right.
With Cloudinary. I don't work there.
I saw the tweet go by just the other day, pinned to your thing. So yeah, tell me all about that.
Yeah, so Cloudinary is it's a media company, and I interviewed to be just a media developer expert to help bring community together and talk about media with Cloudinary, and a lot of it's going to be focused around accessibility, like what I do, right? Accessibility and images and Cloudinary and all that stuff. So I'm really stoked for it. Still onboarding, so I'm still figuring out all the things. So I might not even be saying it properly, right? So I got to go back through the guidebook and stuff. But yeah, no, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to be associated with Cloudinary. That's really, really cool. So
yeah, that's so awesome. What was the first way they found out about you?
So actually I found out about through Tessa Mero. She's she was talking about it during a conference last week, Magnolia JS, that my buddy JC Hyatt runs, and Cloudinary sponsored, and they had a sponsorship going on, and she was talking about becoming an MDE and how there was an application process and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to apply. So one thing led to another, and bam, here we are.
Oh, dude, that's so cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So you also have a podcast, speaking about podcasts, since we're on a podcast and live stream. And one of the questions, and I'm going to ask you all about it in a second, but I love this question because it's Tales from the Script, which obviously the play on Tales from the Crypt, the classic horror TV show, unless you're maybe a millennial and don't recall that. I don't know. But anyway, one of the questions I believe you ask, well, I didn't hear it on the last episode, but maybe I missed it. But one of the questions you always ask is, what's your favorite horror movie? And I wanted to ask you that. What's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, come to think about it, I don't think I asked Jen what her favorite horror movie was. I'm glad you picked up on that.
You didn't.
I fucked up. I fucked up. Wow. Oh,
that's one of the big motifs.
That's the whole show. I don't even have to talk about web development. We can talk about horror movies the whole fucking time. Oh, my favorite horror movie would have to be John Carpenter's Halloween. If you might not be able to see it, but I got a Halloween mask, or Michael Myers mask, in the back from the original Halloween. That's my favorite. I know it's super cliche, but I mean, it's a classic. It's never going to get old. I could watch it 100 times, a million times. So that's my favorite.
Yeah, it's such a good movie. Especially, some of those movies, when you grow up with it, it kind of becomes part of your fabric of your life, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one for a lot of people. I think for me, I'm more into the horror anime, like Tokyo Ghoul or Blood Sea. Some of the other things like that. You know what I like recently though was live action, was that Netflix Dracula. Did you see it?
I think I started it. I just never finished it. I'm really bad on starting shit on Netflix, and if I can't get into it right away, I stop watching it. A good show, I don't know if you ever watched it, was Santa Clarita Diet with Drew Barrymore.
Oh yeah, where she's a zombie. That's so good.
But they stopped it after season 2. They got great ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, but then they canned it after season 2. And I was super pissed. I'm like, this is they are a perfect combination, those two together in a show. I was super upset. So yeah, there is, I mean, it's still on Netflix, but that's after season 2, they scrapped it.
That is so weird. Yeah, Netflix is weird. Like some of the like really good shows, like the Strange whatever Creatures of
Stranger
Christine
Things.
McConnell. Yeah, oh, it was it's a different show, but it's so good, and they canceled that after one show. What show were you saying? I'm sorry.
Stranger Things.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I love Stranger Things.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. Netflix is weird like that. So, what was the what was the reason you got in love with horror movies?
Oh, well, I grew up with horror movies. You know, my parents, they were always watching horror movies when I was a kid. Like the first horror movie that ever scared me was Poltergeist.
Oh, well, dude,
Because
that's a fucking scary movie.
well, I had a little clown like that too. I had one, and like I remember I used to sit up in my crib, and I used to like I had like a hammock, right, with all my stuffed animals in it, and I had one of those little fucking clowns, smaller than the one at Poltergeist, but I used to have like a little flashlight too. So I'd sit up in my crib and I'd just shine my flashlight at this fucking thing all the time. So one day, I don't know if it was me or my mom, or it was probably me. I took it and I threw it. In our basement. We had like a half barrel that was covering up some pipes. It was just like 70s decorations or something. And I threw it behind this like half barrel in the basement. And I'm like, nobody knew I did it. My parents didn't know I did it. I was the only one that I knew that I did it, right? Well, I go back a couple years later. Now, mind you, there's nothing behind this half barrel besides pipes and maybe like a water meter or something. We never fucked around with anything like that. And
Sure, okay.
I went back to look and see if it was still there, and it was gone. Never saw it again. So right there is like when I got my first taste of the horror stuff. And then growing up in a haunted house, like you and I were talking about, and then I just kind of like just gravitated towards horror. Like it's the thrill and the scare of like you don't know what's behind a door, or you don't know what's going to happen, like that foreshadowing. I think that's why I love it so much. And now, I got tons of horror movie shit. I got horror movie tattoos, and that's my life, man. I love it.
What horror movie tattoos you got?
So I got old school Pennywise right there.
Oh, nice.
And then I got Michael Myers. I'll have to stand up. I got Michael Myers right here. I got John Carpenter's, and I got Rob Zombie's, like a half and half.
Oh, nice.
And then I got a zombie Gumby on my thigh. I do. Awesome. I have a zombie Gumby on my thigh. So, but yeah, I plan on doing like the leg that I have the zombie Gumby on. I also have like a jack-o'-lantern with a dagger through it. Mm-hmm. That whole leg's going to be all horror. I'm going to do it all black and gray. Leave the 2 colored ones and then do the rest all black and gray. It's going to be the horror leg. So,
oh, nice. I got a really sweet vampire bat right here, but obviously I can't show it right now with my shirt that I just got done. I really enjoy it right before this whole COVID bullshit happened. So why don't we talk about your podcast a little bit more though? Okay. So tales from the script.
Tales from the script.
Yeah. So obviously we get the horror correlation, but so why did you start this? When did you start this? And it's obviously still active.
Yeah, I started a couple years ago. I wanted to do some more stuff with the community, right? And I wanted to start a podcast because I would guest on podcasts. I'm like, oh, this is really dope. This is a really cool way of creating content and getting to speak with people who I might not be able to speak with all the time. And nowadays you see a lot of podcasts out there that they don't feel organic. They feel very organized. And I'm like, I don't want mine to be that way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want there to be like a set way of doing it, or like I come up with the information and then like my guest just flows with me. I wanted it to be really guest oriented. So I came up with the idea that, this isn't even going to be my podcast. This is everybody's podcast. And my guests, they can pick the title, they can pick the topic. Once they pick that, I started drafting up questions just so like there was a little bit of a structure so we weren't losing our train of thought. So I give my guests, a handful of questions, usually about 10 questions. But we still make it organic, right? And I just kind of flow from one thing to the other, but I don't come up with the shit. It's all the guest choice. It's your podcast. They want to hear, and by they, I mean the listeners, they want to hear what you care about and what you're passionate about. People already know what the fuck I care about. I talk about that shit all the time, right? Nobody wants to hear me. They want to hear you. So that's why I make it really guest focused.
Well, I don't know if they don't want to hear you, but per se, but yes, I get what I get where you come from. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's cool. Why I started it. And, I figured how can I tie this in with horror? So I figured, what could I mix with horror that's really horrific in my life? And that's JavaScript. So I just figured Tales from the Script. It's a play on words between JavaScript and Tales from the Crypt. Let's roll with it. So wham,
Yeah,
bam, there you go.
perfect. I really enjoyed the last episode you did with Jen. Like everything about accessibility and all the things that she was talking about was awesome.
Yeah, I have
And
the sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The transcript for that's
okay.
coming out soon as well. I'm actually working on getting transcripts done for that, either doing myself or getting a sponsorship to pay for them. But they will be coming out soon. Like I said, the one with Jen is happening soon. The transcript should be out by the end of the week. So yeah,
Nice. Yeah,
hopefully.
and that was definitely a great episode because it touched on what a lot of the things that you advocate for accessibility.
Yeah, yeah, and Jen is a huge accessibility advocate too. So if you ever get a chance to talk to Jen, definitely bring her on the podcast. Um, yeah,
Yeah, you know what?
she's
I
an
will
amazing.
hit her up. Yeah.
She's an amazing speaker. She does a lot for the industry. Her and I have worked on open source stuff together, accessibility stuff together. Yeah, no, she's an amazing influencer. She's an amazing advocate. And it's funny that, Auth0 is also sponsoring this because James, who I was tweeting about earlier, he works for Auth0. So definitely bring James on too.
Yeah, I sent him a DM as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but Jen definitely, she's amazing. And like, I could give you a handful of amazing people to bring on. Maria Lamardo. I'm sure you've
Had
already
her.
talked to Maria.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marcy Sutton, Alice Boxhall. There's just so many amazing people out there
Yeah, I think we
that are,
I think we had a few of the same. Sorry to interrupt you. I think we had a few of the same guests too.
yeah, no, I mean, there's so many out there. Derek Featherstone, Nick Steenhout,
Yeah.
so many people. So
How did you get into accessibility? I as a lot of people have, like such as myself, we've gone and or listened to your talks, watched them on YouTube. We know that a lot of your passion and inspiration comes from your own experience with your mom and trying to make devices and applications that are accessible and for anyone to use. And your mom has some of these issues where with the vision and I think you said short-term memory and
yeah,
such. Do you mind going into that a little bit?
yeah. So when I started building on the web, like accessibility really wasn't a thing to the point it is now. And like, I always knew kind of like the low hanging fruit things with, making accessible tables, because that's how we built websites back in the day, right? We use tables and alt attributes on your images. But I would say maybe 2013, 14 is when I really started getting more into it. I saw talks from like JSConf by Marcy Sutton, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't really think of these things, but she has so many valid points. And it really opened my eyes to what the web really was about, right? The web isn't about me. It's about the users out there. And who are the users? They could be anybody, right? So I just started watching more of her talks that she would give, and she'd talk about, this or that, or she'd showcase friends of hers that are blind or have low vision and how they use the web and their struggle. And I was like, you know what, there needs to be more people talking about accessibility. Like, and I'm passionate about it for all the different reasons. And I'm like, I need to start doing this. So she kind of indirectly kind of like nudged me forward into like the accessibility space. And then I've had other friends, including her, that kind of nudged me into the speaking space. So that's kind of how that all came to be. And then as I reflected more on what I was talking about, and that's when my mom kind of came into it. Like, over the years, my mom has, like, her everything is kind of degenerated, right? The hearing and the memory and everything like that. And she doesn't even use a computer. But if she did, I would want it to be as easy as possible, right? So that's why I always say, if I can make an accessible user experience for her at the end of the day, I've done my job as a worker on the web. So yeah, that's kind of like the backstory for that.
Yeah, I love one of the things that you said where you were saying that we should redefine what web accessibility means, and that it means that it's everyone could use the web, and that's the whole purpose. There was one of these talks that you gave, and I have a link right here. I want to make sure I'm communicating the right talk, which was focusing on focus, and it was so interesting to me because you played a video from Apple on web accessibility. And after you played it, there was a few people in the audience that laughed and found humor in someone's impairment, and it's really eye-opening to hear people, especially adults.
Yeah.
Maybe if this was children, I could understand their lack of maturity, but like adults that paid to come to a conference and there's like chuckles here and there. It's just
Yeah.
it's so odd.
It's upsetting. I've had, and I know what you're talking about, and I've seen it because I'm giving the talk, right? But I've been there, and I will flat out stop in my tracks and look in the audience, and I will see who did it. And I'm like, this is not funny. If you think this is funny, you can leave. And I've done that. Like, I don't bullshit, beat around the bush, and I'm not the nice guy. Like, this is serious. Like, you paid to be here, you paid to learn about accessibility, and you think it's funny. Get the fuck out of my room.
Yeah.
I had somebody in a talk one time. I was giving a CSS talk in Grand Rapids, and I was talking about accessibility within CSS, and they said CSS or accessibility doesn't matter. And I stopped dead in my tracks. I took my glasses off, and a couple of my friends were in the audience, and their jaws dropped, and they're like, "This person does not know who they're talking to." And like, I was, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't being a dick, but I was very stern with the person, and I'm like, I turned red because like it just set me off. And then I talked to the person afterwards, and they finally understood, the reasoning, right? But like, you don't come to a talk of mine and say accessibility doesn't matter. Like that's step number one. You don't do that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, I mean, it's happened, and it sucks, but you can only, like I tell people all the time, you can lead a horse to water, right?
Sure. What do you think is the reason that people don't get it sometimes? Obviously not all people. It's just some people. They don't see the value. Like I could point out some of the things that you brought up in your talk, which you communicated that 20% of people have a disability. So out of 7 billion humans, that's around 1.4 globally.
Yeah.
Things like that. And then you also said that 20% of any given workforce has some form of impairment within their company.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you think like with out of those numbers, people go, oh yeah, like, is it just a lack of empathy, or people just being like, I don't want to deal with that because I'm too busy, or I'm afraid to look that in the face?
It's a couple of things. And I was just talking with somebody the other day about this. I think it's a couple of things. It's because, they don't have the time to do it. Okay, I get it. It's a valid answer. It's valid in the sense that you're working on an agile team and you have a 2-week sprint and you can't sell it to a manager or supervisor, and they say, no, you got to do what you got to do. I get that. I've been there. It boils down, and maybe it boils down to empathy, because that person's never been in a situation like that, or they might have never seen somebody with that type of disability. Try to use their experience. And then 3, it boils down to education, right? You don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? And if you've never seen a low vision or a blind user try and use the internet before, you don't know what it's like for them. But the second if you were to go on YouTube and Google that or whatever, it's amazing to see a low vision or blind user use the web, because they use a screen reader at an insanely fast-paced amount of words per minute, that it's like, whoa, if I can't build this for them to use, like, it is going to just be entirely pointless. Right. So I think it kind of boils down to all of those different things. And that's kind of how you sell it too. Bring the empathy, bring the stats and statistics, bring the facts, but also educate as well. And that's why we're out there doing it. That's why we're out there educating people and giving talks, and we do, writing and doing podcasts, is to educate and mentor so we can make the web a better place.
You bring up a really interesting point that I'd like to touch on, which is sometimes we don't have the time, and maybe that comes from the decision makers, the hires up. But as influencers, you could obviously do the best you can, but maybe sometimes you have a scope, you're in your sprint, and it didn't come up at the beginning. I don't want to point fingers. Obviously I can't, because every scenario is different, but these are the things that need to be talked about at the beginning, just the way maybe 10, 20 years ago, before, let's say before 2010, or before 2008, we didn't talk about mobile as much, right?
Right. Yeah.
That was like an afterthought. Oh, we'll mobilify it later. We'll response it later. Whatever term you want to use. But these are things, obviously, we talk about mobile now all the time. That's of course that's in the sprint. Why wouldn't you make it responsive, adaptive, what have you? Same thing with accessibility. That as influencers, if that's our role, and decision makers, what have you, we need to make sure that we focus on this, because this is things for the people that actually use our products. And the people, if I'm not mistaken, that use our products are actually putting money in pockets.
Yeah, exactly.
Seems like a simple logic.
Right. I always say the three things that should always take priority first, and they don't have to be in this order, but they need to take priority, is security, accessibility, and performance. Those three things, right? Nobody's going to want to use your site if it's not accessible, for one. Nobody's going to want to use your site if it's not performant. And if they have no valid way of saying or telling that it's secure, they'll go somewhere else. Accessibility is the ROI. And I pulled that from a quote from their UX technologist, UI developer, that wrote an article about the Domino's lawsuit. And they wrote in the article, accessibility is the ROI. And I try and push that as much as possible. Your stuff has to be accessible. It has to. There's, I don't care what anybody says. You know what I mean? You want to make money. Oh, well, we care about the bottom line. Well, your bottom line is tied directly into accessibility.
Humans using your product.
Exactly.
Whatever that might be. I mean, and if you're talking about lawsuits, I mean, that's an easy way to flag that, hey, there's actual real money at stake. I think you pointed out that one. There's also Beyonce got sued for her website a few years ago. Like this stuff is real. People will sue you.
Yeah, Bank of America, Target, Red Roof Inn, Winn-Dixie, Dick Blick Art Materials. I could go on and on and on and on. In 2017, there was 814 federal website lawsuits amongst 9 states and Puerto Rico. Wow. Just a handful of states in Puerto Rico in 2017. 814 federal website lawsuits by state in Puerto Rico. That's 2.5 a day, just from 9 states. 2 of the highest being New York and Florida. That is an unacceptable number. Now, granted, there are, lawyers out there in law firms that just go around looking for inaccessible websites and sue. That could play a huge part in that, but still, 814. That's
a staggering number. I mean, definitely there's validity to somebody spilling the McDonald's coffee on their lap and going, "Oh, the coffee was hot. I need $1 million." Of course, it's fucking hot. But this is a real scenario. It's not even a scenario. This is real life.
Yeah. 814 federal website lawsuits against accessibility. That's crazy. Ridiculous. I mean, crazy might not be the right term, but it's absurd. It's absurd.
Speaking of accessibility, you're also a co-organizer of Ann Arbor Web Accessibility. Can we talk a little bit about that and what they do?
Yeah, so I don't even know if I'm a co-organizer anymore since moving to Denver. But I was co-organizer for the Ann Arbor Accessibility Group back in Michigan, and we would just put together accessibility meetups that we would either do at DQ, which is in Ann Arbor, or a couple other tech companies in downtown Ann Arbor, outside of Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. And we would do get-togethers, we would do talks. Then once I moved to Denver, I kind of had to hand the reins over on that. Same thing with Vutroit. When I started Vutroit, I had to hand the reins over on that. But we did a lot of accessibility talks, and we had our Slack channel and stuff like that. So just tried to bring the accessibility community together in Ann Arbor, which is 45-ish minutes west of Detroit, where I was living. So I would travel out there and do these things and then come back, just because there needed to just be more community based around accessibility. And I think they're still doing things now. I just haven't kept up with what they're doing back at home. So
Are you going? You said you're going back to Detroit
I am.
soon?
Yep. I'm moving back to Detroit in 5 weeks, actually, end of
Oh,
May.
that's so
Yeah.
exciting.
So I'm
So why the
excited.
move? Is it just because of the new job location by have something to
No,
do with that, or
I work remote for Tuft and
yeah,
Needle, so I can go anywhere. There's a lot of reasons why I don't like Denver. Like, and I'm sure there's people listening right now that love Denver or live here, or friends of mine that live here. But personally, for me, like, I knew after 9 months, like, I didn't like it. I didn't like it here at all. I like visiting,
Hmm,
but I need to be in Detroit. Like, I need to be where the hustle is. I need to be where the grime is, the smog. You know what I mean? Like, it's in my. I
yeah,
got 313 tattooed on the back of my neck. Like, that's me. Like, 313 is my life. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So yeah, I
That's
decided
awesome.
to move back. So, and plus, like, my support system is there. My mom is there. My mom is sick, so I'd rather be a 2 hour
Oh,
drive to get to her than a 3 hour plane ride or an 18-hour drive back to Detroit. So she's beaten cancer
yeah.
twice.
Oh,
So
wow. Good for
she's.
her. That's
I
awesome.
want to be there if, knock on wood, but I want to be there if anything happens. And like I said, I have a lot of I suffer from really bad mental health issues, health anxiety being one of them, and my support system's at home. You know,
Hmm.
all my support systems in Michigan. So, like, I need to be there. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm moving back. So
Oh, that's great. So do you have all your plans set up? You already got a place?
yep, I'm gonna stay with a friend of mine right outside of the city until I get on my feet. I got everything I need to move. I just got some moving supplies in the other day, so we're gonna start making things happen and start getting things packed up here soon. Hit
Oh,
the
dude,
road.
that's great. Congrats.
Thank you. I mean, I did it, right? It was a goal to move here. Not
Yeah.
many people can say they've packed up and moved cross country. Well, I did it because people said I wouldn't, and it was a big fuck you. So I did it, and yeah,
You
I
tried it out. You gave
accomplished.
it
I
yeah, you got
accomplished that goal. Time to
mhm.
move on to bigger goals.
Yeah, you gave it a fair try too. Like
Yeah.
you went out there, you tried out the city and you were like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yep. Yep. I
Yeah.
did it. So time to set some higher goals and make those happen. I'm really goal oriented. So if I don't finish my goals or hit my goals, it really gets to me. So
Do you have a goal app? I use Things.
I don't. I've never heard. I like writing shit down. Like, I
Oh
got
yeah,
so many
the texture
pens.
of writing.
Yeah, dude, like, I love writing. I got book after notebook, all with notes and sketches, and I got pens out the ass. Like, I love notebooks and pens. Like, I don't know. Just my thing.
That's awesome. So why don't we talk about your what you do for work, what your day to day is. What would you say your main job is?
So I would say that my main job is building stuff for Tuft and Needle, the company I work for.
Yeah.
And just building in front end technologies, a little bit of JavaScript. I do a lot of accessibility work. I do a lot of CSS. I do a lot of mentoring around accessibility and CSS at work, and kind of push that. Um, no, I wouldn't say push, but influence as to why accessibility is important. And a lot of the team is starting to build with accessibility in mind. And me and another coworker, her and I did a lot of the accessibility work and trainings around accessibility, documentation. So yeah, that's kind of what my day to day is, working on a specific team, small little team on the engineering team.
What kind of JS are you running? Are you a Vue guy, a React guy, or a little bit of everything?
A little bit of none of it.
Oh yeah.
Anybody that knows me, man, I'm not a JavaScript developer. But I can do a little bit here and there. Like, I used to do a little bit of Angular 1 back in, like, the early Ionic days. Currently, right now, I'm building a buddy of mine's barbershop website. He's opening up a barbershop back in Detroit, and I'm using React to build that. I'm using CRA. I'm rebuilding my site using Gatsby. I can do a little bit in
Nice.
Vue. So, I mean, I can do a
Well,
little bit here and there.
I
At
think
work, we use React.
you probably
So,
know. It sounds like you know more than most people, though. I mean, you were like, oh, not at all, but like you know a lot more than a good chunk of people that try this out.
dude, it's so hard. JavaScript is
It
hard.
is. It
It's
is
so
hard.
hard. And it's
Yeah.
hard to get gigs nowadays if you don't know, like, if you're not, like, quote unquote a JavaScript developer. It's super hard. You can have all the skill in the world in the front end, but if you can't build something in React at scale, nobody wants you. And it's an industry problem. And that's like that can be a whole other conversation. Um but no, I mean, I
Well,
can I can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I can't do anything crazy, like heavy duty in JavaScript. So
yeah, but you could do the stuff that counts. And to go to your point, you actually there was a talk that I watched that you discussed the same topic, how people that actually write semantic code, sometimes they're devalued. They people don't, some industries don't see it as them being a specialist in their own right. And like writing actually semantic code is like, a lot of people that are these so-called JavaScript experts, that's not their gig, right? They look towards the people that can do that. And like, you might be great in React, but you don't know what, a picture element is, or how to use it, or how to use certain like site source or source correctly in an image tag, or why you should use an alt tag. Or, there's a lot of things that go with this. There's divs everywhere, or there's a bunch of IDs instead of classes. There's so many things that are important to really good semantic code, whether you're subscribing to what was Jonathan Snook's things, Smacks or
Smacks.
Yeah, love Smacks, or like BAM, or something like that makes sense of the code. So when you actually look at it, it's digestible to the browser, but it's also digestible to tools like accessibility realm, like screen readers and whatnot. There's so much that goes into that, and it's one of those things that irks me too, where that value sometimes is pushed aside and not put in a spotlight where it should be.
Yeah, I think the talk I think you're talking about is the CSS talk I give, where I talk about how CSS developers like myself are devalued in the industry. And it's no secret. You know what I mean? We are devalued in the industry. There's a lot of people I know that struggle getting jobs, or even when I was looking for a new job, because I couldn't do all of the things in JavaScript, like nobody would want me. And I fully love and appreciate that we have JavaScript developers, and that like friends of mine are like, that's what they do. And that's perfect. Because I always said, you take somebody like me and you take a JavaScript developer and put them together, dude, that is an amazing combination, right? I value that. So like, why am I not valued? I've been told I'm not a developer. After 24 years, I'm not a developer, because
That's
I'm
ridiculous.
not, quote unquote, a JavaScript developer, and only a JavaScript developer. And I think that's just, it's just turned that way because of the industry. The industry wants JavaScript developers. So everybody thinks not everybody, but a lot of people think that's what I have to do, or like, that's the only thing I know how to do. And they don't focus so much on the other stuff, but then that makes it super hard for a lot of other people trying to get gigs out there. You know what I mean? But like, no disrespect to anybody that's writing JavaScript. Like sometimes I wish I could do it.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But like, it's just not in my wheelhouse.
Well, I don't know how to put together my carburetor, but I drive my car. I go to somebody for that, just like somebody comes to me for something else. We all need people. We all need specialists, or else you get a bad product, whatever that might be. Like, what's a classic scenario where you have a bunch of developers building a MVP of a product, and then the product comes out and you find out that through the MVP that the user experience is useless. Why was it useless? Because you had two investors that made a product with all these developers that were outsourced from here, there, and everywhere, and they all come together and made a meh.
Yeah.
Like you need design at some point. You need UX. You need other things. You need accessibility. If you're going to put together a car, what I'm saying is you need wheels. You can't just drive the car without the wheels.
Right. Yeah. It's like, you would never expect a nurse to do surgery. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, we all can be in the same space, and we all can live in the same space. I mean, I can be a front-end developer that does not specialize in JavaScript. You can be a front-end developer that does specialize in JavaScript. But if we're doing surgery, I don't want a nurse cutting into me. You know what I'm saying? I want a surgeon that is a specialist.
Exactly.
Y'all work in the medical field, but the nurse does a thing and the surgeon does a thing. Let's just live in harmony.
Yeah, and they all have value.
Exactly.
That's the whole point of
Yes.
people being specialized in certain things and being valued for the thing they do. Like, I'd imagine if you probably turned around and handed, say, a quote unquote JavaScript front end developer, like, here's all my SAS files. What are they going to do with all those SAS files? Wait, so
yeah,
they
might not know what to do. Right. Exactly. They might and they might not.
What what the fuck is Sass? You know?
Right. And the same thing, if you handed me like a whole React project, I'm gonna be like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? I don't know. So I will call on my friends who like do that. And then like, I respect that they do that because I couldn't do it. Right. Like I have friends in the industry who are like, they're Angular developers, React developers, Vue developers. And if I'm stuck on something in any of those frameworks or libraries, like I'm going to go to what I know, who is a specialist or does well in that. And I'm going to ask for advice or ask, how do I do this thing? Right. I couldn't figure out. So perfect example. I'm, the little bit of React that I know. So when you're like using links instead, and the way the documentation reads is instead of like using an anchor tag with an href, you can use a link component in React or Gatsby or whatever the case may be. So to me, I think, okay, anchor tag href, I'm thinking markup. Well, you can use an anchor tag or href for internal and external links. So I'm trying to use the link component throughout my whole application. Well, I didn't know any better. So I reached out to a friend of mine who does React and they're like, oh, no. If it's external linking, you can use an anchor tag with an href. If it's internal is when you use the link component. Well, I didn't know that. None of the documentation I found said that, right? So I went to a specialist and then they led me down the right path and then shit worked after that. That's what I'm trying to get, my point to get to.
Yeah, I mean, you could even take that same scenario and flip it in the other side of the coin, where you'll see a lot of applications being built with CSS with blocks instead of all the other tools that we have now, like Flexbox or Grid. Like, do you think you're going to, at any point in the near future, to 5 to 10 years, seeing just hardcore JavaScript programmers be able to put in a template that's grid, unless they leverage some tool like I don't know, like Foundation or what's the other one, the Bootstrap. Like if they put out like a CSS grid tool at the time, like without those kind of like frameworks, they're not doing that. They don't know how to custom make those elements from scratch, at least currently in the near future.
So I think there could be couple different roads this could go down. One, that like JavaScript developers who might not dabble a bunch in CSS, they're going to have to learn at some point. Because if companies are only hiring JS devs, they're going to have to learn these things. But then what's that do for developers like me, right? Who don't write tons and tons of JavaScript, where we might be screwed. At the end of the day, we might be screwed. You know what I mean? But then
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but then there's also, I've heard of companies that created titles like UX engineer, where that focus is HTML, CSS, accessibility, not JavaScript. So that would be great. That would be great if like other companies could get on board that did that. Like, okay, we're going to hire UX engineers, and then we're going to hire JavaScript engineers, and like do that clear separation. There's some companies out there that do it. Dockyard is one company that I know of where they hire HTML and CSS devs, but then they hire JavaScript devs to work alongside with them. And all the JavaScript developer does is JavaScript. That's all they do. The HTML and CSS devs, that's what they do. And I only know of a few companies out there, and they're few and far between. But I think having that separation, and it might cost more money. It might be more resources, but if you could take, 2 HTML and CSS devs, 2 JavaScript devs, put them on a team together, that and like with a backend dev or whatever, that's a winning combination to me. I would much rather be a specialist than a jack of all trades and a master of none.
It's almost like I was going to say that like we're going back to the future, Marty, where we're creating this person that's going to be a web developer.
Yeah. A webmaster.
A webmaster. Yeah. Webmaster. Like are we going back to like 1990 with that role? But also too, I think it comes down to an easy way to delineate here is that if you commit anything, deploy something to GitHub, you're a developer. You're pushing code, you're working in code. There you go. If you write code, you're a developer. Like I don't give a shit what you're writing. You write code, you're a developer. You write code. You know what I mean? I think it was Angelina Fabreau who did a talk on this a while ago. I think it was a few years ago. I think it was like a JS conf or something. And she was saying
if you write code, it doesn't matter what you write. If you write any line of code, you are a developer. And that's always stuck with me. You know, when people say, well, Chris, you're not a developer or you're not a programmer, like there's that whole debate, programmer versus developer. What the fuck ever. You write code, you're a developer. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, it's a weird place that comes from. It's interesting too, because you don't see it in, at least I haven't seen it in larger companies, more developed, that understand the value of design, the value of having someone that writes experiences, accessibility, all the things that go into a fully formed product, rather than when you are, might be in the startup mode and it's a lot of MVPs and you're just trying to get shit out the door and somebody to look at you.
Yeah. You hear that a lot too. And I've had friends that have said that as well. Like those more specialty roles, you'll find at bigger corps, right? Because they have enough people and they have the budget, et cetera. The more startup-y, smaller companies, like they can't really invest in that because they need somebody that can do it all and do it quickly. Like you said, get shit out the door. So, I mean, it's finding those areas and being able to market yourself, I think, into what your specialty is. Like I market myself as a CSS and accessibility specialist. As a front-end developer, that's like my thing. But finding companies that value that at a small scale is hard. But even the companies that are really, really big, those companies are hard to get into too. And there's usually like a long drawn out process in HR. Usually smaller company startups, they're quick to hire. Boom, boom, boom. I remember I interviewed for a company one time. I think it was like a 3-month interview process because it was a huge corporation. And like, okay, well, what are we doing? You know, like I'm calling recruiters and I'm calling HR people. Like, where's my application? You know, what's the feedback from the interview? And then finally I got a call saying, oh, we want to offer you full-time employment, et cetera, et cetera. But then I've worked at other companies where within a week, 3 interviews, boom, offer, everything was done. And then I put my 2 weeks in at a gig and started. You know what I mean? So I guess it really all depends on the scale of the company, who is on the engineering team, and what they find valuable, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of times in these big companies, sometimes you're getting filtered through people until you get to the team that you would actually be working with. There's only so much that you could communicate to someone in HR, not dissing HR at all, but they don't know what you do. That's not their job. Their job is to filter out to make sure, okay, well, is this person somebody that can work on the team? Can they get here? Or if they're remote, are they going to be able to work the hours in our time zone? Those kind of, whatever those questions may be. And then you actually finally get to the team. And that's when some of that stuff happens where you actually talk shop, if you will. And then you get to the decision makers and more of that stuff. And it could be a process.
One of the frustrating things I find too is when you get referred for a gig and you put in the person's referral or you write a cover letter, because I still write cover letters.
You should always write a cover letter.
People say don't do it. I still do it. If you ask for one, I'm going to write you a cover letter, but I'll put in like my cover letter. Like I was told by, referred by so-and-so at your company that, this was a gig, and I put them down as a referral, but then you don't even move past that. Like you'll get an automated email saying, well, you're not what we're looking for. I'm like, huh? Wait a minute. I was referred by somebody in your company. Like, did you even look at who the referral was? Like, are you kidding me? That's happened a couple different times. And it's like,
wow,
what the fuck? Yeah, dude.
Again, that's that automated process in HR.
Yep. It's not even, they don't even look at your resume. They just look at the application. Like, oh,
it's frustrating. Okay, sometimes you have to have some kind of skill in marketing to make sure that you kind of go the path and circumvent and get to the right individual that is a influencer decision maker, again, someone on the team.
Yeah, it's definitely a trick to do that. Like find the person that makes the decision and go directly to the source. You know what I mean? So it's easier said than done.
Oh, fuck yeah. What I wanted to, another thing I wanted to talk to you about is obviously the landscape of everything right now. I know you do a lot of speaking. You can't do that. Obviously right now there's of course a lot of events that are being turned into remote events, webinars, what have you. So how has everything been changed for you, and how are you just coping with things?
Oh, it sucks. Flat out, it sucks. Like last week, so I had a bunch of events lined up. I was supposed to go to Lithuania for an
Oh,
event
wow.
in May. That got canceled. Oh, it got postponed till I think August, maybe. But even still, then, like, I'm still. Are we going to be okay in August? Like, is international travel going to be okay in August? Like, I don't know. Like, these are things that kind of keep me up at night because I am so involved in the community, and I love speaking. I love traveling because I see it as a way not only to teach and mentor, I get to see my friends. You know what I mean? I get to hug people and like have that physical, because like I'm a big
Connections,
dude.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big dude. I have tattoos. I have a beard. I look intimidating, but you could hit up James Quick right now. And if he's listening, he knows what I'm talking about. The first time I met him, I gave him a huge bear hug and he was intimidated by me, but I gave him a huge hug and I was like, dude, I'm so happy to meet you. Like people don't see that when they see me. Like I might look super like a badass. I am a huge, huge softie. I like to hug people. I'm a huge hugger. That's just the way I was brought up. And like I miss hugging people. Like I was telling Gant Laborde today, I'm like, dude, I just want to hug somebody. Like, and if it's a friend of mine that's on the speaker circuit that I only see rarely every few times a year, then that's amazing. But it's been hard for me as an extrovert with mental health issues that is a speaker, being stuck and cooped up in here, having to speak to a computer. You know what I mean? It's just not the same for me. I did 2 talks last week. I did Magnolia JS, which is JC Hyatt's event. That was an amazing event, amazing turnout, over 2,000 attendees. Oh, it was a great event. He turned it around so quickly because it was supposed to be in person. He turned it
Right, yeah.
around and made it all online, all virtual. He opened up the tickets to be free.
Oh, wow.
It he killed it the way he made it happen. And that one was a live one. And then that Friday, I did a pre-recorded talk of the same talk for Future Sync in the United Kingdom. That was pre-recorded. So that was aired on last Friday. It's just not the same for me. It's not like I miss parties. I miss dinners. I miss the hallway track. I miss that physical interaction with people. And I keep saying it, like, if this is how things are going to be moving forward, even after all this virus stuff is done, I might stop speaking because it's
Well,
just not the same for me.
we're gonna definitely have caution for the next few months. It might be something to where, after, if we have the big apple drop or the ball drop, what have you, in New York, if there is a big New Year's party, I think we're not going to really see people distancing until after that, because everybody's still going to be like, I don't fucking know.
Exactly. That's the scary thing about it is like, yeah, once we can go outside, excuse me, or like once everything is gravy, is it really gravy?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I don't want to travel if that's the case, and it's hard, dude. Speaking to this camera right here is hard when I
Well,
don't have that
you
interaction with you.
you said you're an extrovert. I myself am an introvert, and I just want to declare what those things mean for people that don't really get it sometimes. An extrovert being somebody that re-energizes themselves within a group of people, and an introvert recharges when they're alone. I'm not shy. I love people. I just, at the end of the day, I need to go to my quiet place and re-energize.
Right.
But as an extrovert, you need people to
Yeah.
really pull that energy from. So you're losing out on all your juice right now.
Yeah. I am literally, it's the same thing every day. Sleep, eat, work, sleep, eat, work, sleep, eat, work, because I can't go to the bar. I go to
Yeah.
the bar a lot. I see my friends and my bartender friends. I can't do that. So I'm missing out on that. Meetups, can't do that. All the conferences, like I thrive on that energy. You know what I mean? The community is why I do what I do. And I don't have that. And yeah, I guess you could say you have that when you're doing virtual events, but it's not the
It's not the
same.
same thing.
It's not the
No.
same. So if the trend goes this way in a lot of big events, small events, I don't care, an event, everything goes virtual, I might have to retire from speaking just because I don't know if I could do it, to be completely honest. So I hope I'm not like upsetting anybody out there, but like that's the truth of the matter. Like I have
Yeah.
to be around people, and if I can't be around people, then I'd rather use that energy for something else.
I'm sure, like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to be optimistic, pessimistic. I'm just saying, like, I'm going to be hopeful in some capacity that by the end of the year, we're going to be outside, we're going to be hanging out with people again. And even if there is some kind of second wave, of course, with all this fuckery going on with some of these states letting people go out early, even in Florida where I'm at, a lot of the beaches have opened up, and of course there's fuckery there.
I can't.
But hopefully I know it's just nuts. But hopefully by the end of the year we could return to some kind of normalcy, and by next year we're going to be able to be in the crowds again, shake somebody's hand, and you'll be able to give somebody a big bear hug.
I hope so, man. Like a lot of the events, they've postponed to the end of the year to be in person, and that's great. I'm still speaking at them. I'll be at Refactor later this year, UI Architecture in New Orleans. I'll be there. I think a couple other that I'm missing, but a lot of the bigger ones they canceled, and they're already saying we're going to be back at it again next year. And I'm hoping it'll be in person. Like that's my hope, is that there'll be in-person events. Because organizers will tell you too, like, yeah, it does save a lot of money, but still you miss out on the hallway treks, and you miss out with your friends and the dinners and the drinks and the parties. And that's how I survive. That's what I thrive in, man. I thrive in that.
That's kind of the big part of like why you go to a conference. You go to these events so you can shake somebody's hand. You can talk to the people that's are the subject matter experts in X, Y, and Z. And hey, you know what? I want to talk to you in the hallway and ask you a question, blah, blah, blah. There's so much value in doing that. You can't get that shit virtually.
No, I can't tell you to meet me in the hallway. You know what I'm saying? For a hallway track, unless we like the form of a hallway track, it was like, hey, hit me up on Slack or DM me in Twitter, and then we'll talk through Zoom. Like that's the hallway track. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's not the same. It's just not the same.
And I'm sorry that you had to celebrate your birthday on through this shit too.
So funny story. I was in Detroit. I was in Michigan for my birthday because I was going to a wedding, and that was before the panic really set in. Like people were still out, and we were out. We were going to dinner for my birthday, and we went to a wedding, and we went out to eat, and we were going to stores and shit. Everything was okay. People were like, fuck it. This is just the flu, blah, blah, blah. And then that week I was in Michigan, panic started setting in because the governor was like, we're going to shut schools down. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck? They're shutting the schools down? Mm-hmm. So then they shut the schools down. And then literally like the night before I left is when the panic set in all across the country. So I'm stuck in Michigan. I'm like, should I go back home? Should I go back to Denver? Do I stay here? Like, what do I do? Like, I was freaking out. But I did get back on the plane, came back to Denver, and I've been in quarantine since March 16th.
Oh.
That's when the panic like really hit across the country, and then everything shut down, schools shut down, and nobody was leaving their house.
People started burning down 5G towers. Yeah.
Yeah, and raiding all the toilet paper like assholes.
Mm-hmm. Literally, figuratively.
Figurative, yes, exactly. No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but I've been in lockdown since then, and I've rarely gone out. I've driven my truck, just to charge the battery up and get some air rolling through the tires. Make trips here and there to get maybe some groceries and toilet paper because I found some. But other than that, dude, I've been locked up in this fucking apartment since the 16th of March, and it sucks. But nothing's stopping me from moving home.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I'm sure it will look like a ghost town.
It's going to be crazy. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Good luck to you on that.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man. Well, we're right about at the end of the show, and I like to provide our guest with two questions. One being, what is the best way people could find out more about you? What's your Twitter handle? What's your website?
Yeah, so I'm Sultan Burnham, SaltnBurnem, Sultan Burnham on Twitter. And if you're a Supernatural fan, you'll understand that reference. So you hit me up on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, DM me. I am open to talk to anyone and everyone about anything they want to talk about. It doesn't have to be web related, horror movies, TV, tattoos. I don't give a shit, whatever you want to talk about. Website is chrisdemars.com. Nothing fancy there. Like I said, I'm currently working on a rebuild using Gatsby. So that'll be cool once I get that squared away. But yeah, usually Twitter's the best way to get a hold of me. So
Great. And we'll have that in the show notes, obviously. You know, it's funny that within that show, like the first few seasons, they don't even salt and burn any bones.
I know. Isn't that crazy? The first time I heard him, like I watched this show over and over and over and over and over again. Like I will never get sick of Supernatural ever. I got Supernatural shit up there. I got posters all over the place. I got a magnet on my fridge, and I love when I hear him say, "Oh, you got to salt and burn the bones." And I'm like, "Ha ha ha! Here I am." You know what I mean? No, I love that show so much. There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah,
obviously, is the new season's already out, right?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't been keeping up with it. I don't have cable anymore. So, and I know like Hulu is weird with the way they do shows. Like they'll show like half a season or like season 15, episode 3, and they'll leave out 1 and 2. So like I can't even follow it. So I got to wait till all this stuff is on Blu-ray and then buy it and then watch it. So
yeah, Hulu's has a lot of fuckery going on. I try to start watching the last season of The Good Place, but like the beginning of the season wasn't on there, and I was like, what? Yeah, where's the value in that? Like it's just so dumb.
So I watched Ghost Adventures. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just
please.
Yeah, talking about paranormal and supernatural stuff. I watch Ghost Adventures all the time on Hulu, and like they'll have episode or season 1, and they'll only have 2 episodes of season 1 for Ghost Adventures. It's like, wait, if there's more than 2 episodes, but you gotta buy it. You gotta buy it on Blu-ray or DVD.
That's ridiculous that you have to buy the media. Just have it out. And what was that show you were telling me before we started recording? It was
Hellier.
How do you spell that?
HELL. IER.
Okay, so I had it right. Yep. Just how it sounds. Okay.
Yep.
And that's Hellier. On Prime.
That's on Amazon Prime. Yep. Season 1 and season 2 are the only 2 on there right now.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to watch that.
Super badass show, dude. Super badass show. I'm telling you. You'll dig it. Seriously.
It sounds like it's right up my alley, honestly. And the last thing that I like to ask people is to more their advice. I like to provide an opportunity at the end of the show for you to say any kind of words or wisdom for our audience, anything that you'd like to get out there.
Getting old is mandatory. Growing up is optional. I say that all the time.
Where's that come from?
It's a funny story.
I'd imagine there would be.
Everything is a funny story. So a long time ago, I was 16. I was in my girlfriend's basement, and like her stepdad had a plaque on the wall in the basement, and the plaque said, "Getting old is mandatory. Growing up is optional." And ever since I read that, I was 16, and I'm 34. That stuck with me every single day of my life. Getting old is mandatory. Growing up is optional. Never grow up. Always be a kid. Always have fun. You see a lot of people out there, my age, older, younger, who are all like, "Oh, I'm grown up now, blah, 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 blah." Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Be responsible. Do the things. Pay your bills, but don't take things so seriously. You want to have fun? Have fun. You only live once. And we know that now, right?
Yeah, very much.
Seriously. Live your life and handle your shit. Take care of your business. But hey, we're all going to get old. Just because we get old does not mean we have to grow up.
That's right. You don't want to be one of those people 87 years old on your deathbed going, "Oh man, I wish I did X, Y, and Z." Fucking do it. Yeah, exactly. Enjoy life. It's a gift. Do
exactly.
It.
Well, and like my dad, it's a whole other situation, but like my dad's that type of dude. Tucks his shirt in, slicks his hair back every single day, whether he's going out or not. It's like, dude, I'll do something funny or say something funny, and he'd be like, "Grow up." I'm like, no. What do you got tattoos for? Grow up. Why don't you grow up? Fuck off.
It's so interesting, that mindset of like taking everything so seriously. It's almost like having some kind of trepidation where someone's going to attack your ego, your fragile ego at any point. So you have to have that cardboard tank at the ready.
Yeah. I mean, just like I said, handle your shit, pay your bills, do what you know is right in life. But if you want to have fun, and nobody's stopping you. So
well said. Yeah, enjoy life, dude. Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate you being on the show. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, super cool. Thanks everybody for watching, and also thank you again to our sponsor, Auth0. That is auth0.com. Thanks everybody. Take care.